Hello YouTube! I am Pinstar and this is Satisfactory Strategy and Tactics. So today I have a build for you for our humble game of Satisfactory 1.0. The early game is often marred with power, electricity problems. So today I have a build for you that will take care of electricity throughout the early game. I call it the power plant. So 450 megawatts of power production, 3 different types of inputs, and 2 stories of raw power production that will make your early game a breeze. Let me show you how to build it. Before you get started, you're going to want a few things in your inventory and a few technologies unlocked. Now, this is an early game build, so this is not depending on any super deep research tree items, but there's a few critical pieces. You're going to want pretty much all of Tier 1 completed, although field research is, technically speaking, optional. In Tier 2, we absolutely need obstacle clearing, logistics Mark II, and if you want any of the extra bits and bobs from the Awesome Shop, you're going to want the Resource Sync bonus program as well. The Awesome Shop items are technically optional, but I highly recommend it. Make sure you've got yourself plenty of reinforced iron plates, cables, iron plates, iron rods, and wire. And let me show you how we build it. So first things first, find yourself a nice flat spot. This right here is good. We did the rocky desert start, but this should work with any of the biome starts. First item that I highly recommend, and this one is technically not part of our deal here, is build yourself a lookout tower. It may not be part of the critical structure, but it's really, really helpful in building this. By giving yourself a higher perch, you're able to build larger structures more easily and more quickly. The other thing that I would highly recommend is put some most often used parts onto your hotbar, like I have done so down here. In order to do that, mouse over the item and then hit the number key to put it to that. So here we hit a 7, and that gives us the storage container on our hotbar. You can always modify this later on when you're done with one particular build. We are going to go with 4-meter foundations. You can do the 2 meters if you want, but I like the larger ones just to get us up a little bit higher off the ground. Other tip, hit the R key to go from default mode to zoop mode. I'll show you what that does in just a second. Also, hold down the right control key, and that will make your foundations snap to the world grid. So if you're building factories foundations elsewhere and they eventually meet, they will be on the exact same grid. Our baseline factory here is going to be a 5x5 grid. And this is what the zoop mode does. By having it in zoop mode, you can drag out a line of things rather than building these one square at a time. And as you can see, being high up lets you do large and broad spectrum builds here a lot more easily. Next step, we want to set down 3 of our storage containers. And it doesn't really matter which side, but they should all be on one side. And put all next to each other, but on their own square here. And have them, set like this, where like that little edge is just barely hanging off the edge here. Just like that. 1, 2, 3. One of the optional items from the Awesome Shop that I unlocked here, and this is more of an aesthetic thing than a super critical one, is the conveyor wall pack. If you get conveyor wall X1, you'll be able to build them, and you can still be in zoop mode for this. 1, 2, 3. This is what gives you those little holes that lets you access these from the outside. We're actually going to encapsulate this whole factory, this whole power plant, but this gives us more room to work with, and you know, like I said, looks nice. It fits nicely with the openings of that. The rest of these we are going to encapsulate with basic walls. We are going to do 2 floors to begin with here. Don't worry, we'll actually get into the guts of this soon enough. If we just leave it at this, a lot of the stuff down here would clip up through the floor. So one last little thing, and again, this is aesthetics, is go for the round of the 1 meter high basic walls. This gives us just a little bit more height here. All right, let us dive right in. Our next step here is we need to, these 3 are going to be our different storage containers for the 3 different raw materials that we're going to be putting this, that will serve as the fuel source for this. So we're going to throw down 3 different constructors here. And yeah, we want to just put them like right up against each of these here, right next to each other. And if you see that little line down there, that little line helps us measure them out. Now for belts, because we have both Mark 1 and Mark 2 belts available to us, because that's one of the critical ones, I am going to be defining which areas need the Mark 1s and which ones need the Mark 2. Because at this stage of the game, you're not swimming in reinforced plates, so we don't want to Mark 2 everything. So the outer 2, we're going to want Mark 1 belts. That's fine. The middle one, which is going to be our leaves, should be Mark 2. And then make sure you define each of these. So these 3 are going to be turning raw materials, leaves, wood, and mycelia, into biomass. Yes, I know, there is a 4th raw material that can be turned into biomass as well, alien protein. That is not part of this build, but that is because there are better things for you to do with alien protein than just turn it into biomass. That, and it would ruin the symmetry of the build here and cause things to not fit. So I have opted to, opt out of it. The middle one is going to be leaves. Middle one is always leaves. The other 2 doesn't really matter. One is wood, one is mycelia. Doesn't really matter which is wood, which is mycelia. Just make sure you remember which one is wood and which is mycelia. More on that later. So we got mycelia over here. Perfect. The 3 of these all need to merge together. And we want them to merge together. So we're going to get not a splitter, a merger. We want them to merge together actually up here. We are going to just scooch it over just a smidge like this, because we want them to draw over a little bit here. Now for the belts, we're going to be doing the inverse of these 3. So the ones that only needed Mark 1 belts going into them actually need the Mark 2 belts coming out of them. And then the one that, the leaves that only needed the Mark 2 belt coming in, only needs the Mark 1 belt. I'll explain in more detail why shortly. We need 1 more of our construct, and we want to just put it basically facing this way. That should be good. And we want a Mark II belt on this one. Beautiful. Now this bad boy will be making our final product, solid biofuel. The reason for this is as you process and refine biomaterial, it actually becomes more, it gets more biomass essentially. You get more burn energy out of it by more highly refining it. So it is absolutely worth the power that it requires to run the constructors to do all the refining. That also gives us a unified product to deal with it as the output. So it doesn't matter which of the 3 we put in, the end result is always going to be the same. And it's going to be as efficient as possible. For power, we want to set up a wall outlet here. That's one of the other reasons why I like going with it. The wall outlet here is also an awesome shop item. You can do power poles if you really want to, but I'm doing wall outlets. Each of these can hold 4 connections, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Now we need another power pole connector out this way here. So we're going to go with actually a double power pole, and I'll show you why later on in the build. So we're going to put that right down here. Okay, so what we'll do here is connect the last slot of this one to this one. We'll also connect this one to that one. We've got a lot of room down here on the first floor. This is a 2-floor setup here, but we want to maximize the use of the space that we are taking up. So we want to get a series of burners down here. So we're going to get a couple of splitters out here. Firstly, we're going to have one going down here, and one going shortly after that, like right here. And what we want to do is we want to fit as many burners as we can down here without doing too much clipping. Put them down on a line like this. We want them to be, get that little line next to each other, but you should be able to fit comfortably 4 of them. And perhaps uncomfortably 5, but 4 is really what you're after. If we can squeeze the 5th one in here, we'll do that. So we're going to go back to Mark 1. So after this machine, After we do the solid biofuel, everything else in the factory is Mark 1 belts. We do not need to worry about Mark 2 belts and all of the reinforced plates that would require. Hook these two to each other, hook these up, and then what we'll do is we'll get more splitters, and we're going to be basically putting them in a line here. Make sure that these are talking to each other. And then we don't need one for this last one because it can just go off of the splitter, the other end of the splitter. There we go. So this splitter is going to be where we break off from here, and we're actually going to be going skyward. This is how we're going to get up to the second floor. But in order to go up to the second floor, we need to make the second floor. So let's make the second floor, shall we? Foundations, and I like to do the 1 meter foundations here. And once again, make sure we're in zoop mode. Make sure we're up that 1 meter, that extra little lip of buildings that we had in there is, we want that little extra height. Otherwise, those little red poles that stick up from the constructors would be poking through the floors, and that's just real ugly. That's no bueno to me. And yes, it looks like we're sealing ourselves in, but well, we kind of are. But we can get out once we've built what we need to build down here. Now what we want to do is get ourselves a Mark 1. We go to logistics, conveyor lift. And we want this thing, we'll call it over here. That should be fine. We'll put you up, and yeah, we're gonna just ram it right through the ceiling. That would normally look real ugly. And actually, yeah, we're gonna point it towards the back like this. Just make it so that the top goes all the way up like that. Now, I know what you're saying. That looks kind of weird, Pinstar, just poking right through there. That's why from the Awesome Shop, we get the conveyor lift floor hole. Make sure you approach it from this angle, and now that's much better. Now it's not clipping through the ceiling. So we've got that going here. So stuff is going to go through here. It's going to split off to a couple of our burners, but from here, a good chunk of it will be coming up this way. A few more things we need to do before we go on our merry way. We are going to get another twofer, and actually I decided I'm going to do the double power pole up here. So let's just fix this real quick. We'll nix you. We'll get a single power pole over here. You go to it. And yes, we do need to hook up these burners here. Then that power pole goes over here. And of course, we can't forget our initial power pole. There we go. That needs to go back over to here. That way we're outputting power on the same side of the factory that we're inputting raw materials. Boom. Perfect. Beautiful. All right. That should be everything we need for the downstairs. So I'm just going to poke a little hole for us to crawl out of, and then we'll just repair that, and we'll do the upstairs. Just note that we have the power pole sticking out from here. So that will allow us to get at the rest of the electricity. Before we do too much here, let's go back to some wall building, because I do want to get some walls and perhaps a ceiling for the second floor. What I highly recommend here is build your biomass burners first. And as you can see from our recipe, we slotted ourselves up we have 11 more to build. This build has a total of 15 biomass burners. That is going to give us the 450 megawatts of power. That also happens to be exactly how many biomass burners a single constructor being fed full allotment. Oh, we're missing our iron plates. That's why it's not letting me. Give me a moment, folks. I need to restock. All right, we're back. We have our stuff, more biomass burners to be built. And again, make sure they're all lined up with each other. So we're going to get a splitter actually butted up right up against our output here. That should be perfect. Yeah, just make sure you build the micro belt in there. And then from here, we're going to be doing some more splitting. Yeah, these two are not going to quite perfectly line up, but that's okay. And again, we're more interested in these lining up much better. And then here we are actually going to be putting the last splitter because we want this last one to be split into as well. And just as before, we are hooking all of these up. But we are not quite done here because we have a couple more sides over here. 3 more outlets, which means 3 more burners. Last we have, well, it says 2. We have 3 because we deconstructed one. So we have 3 more biomass burners to make. But we have just enough room on this side to make that happen. Here we can do it, we can put them back to back here like this. Just make sure they're perpendicular to each other here. Or close enough anyway. And once again, 2 more splitters along the line here. And link up the rest of our stuff. It's a lot of belts, but like I said, these are all Mark 1s. We do need to make sure we link all of these up to power. So we're going to need plenty of these little power poles. 1, 2, 3. And then that is going to get plugged into the master. Oh, actually, we're going to need another master one here. And once again, we're going to be doing it on this side. These 3 in the middle, I'm actually going to do a proper power pole. And then over on this side, another side one for 1. So that should be all of our things hooked up to power, all of our stuff hooked up to that. The last thing you want to do is pick one of these, and usually pick one at the very end, one that's going to take a while to get any goods, and give it some goods. Have a stack of solid biofuel. Doesn't have to be a full stack, but have a stack of solid biofuel in here. All right, that is our stuff. Let me just get a proper 1 thing power pole here, so we can get the electricity readings on the ground. But one last step, and that is to get the biomass. By the way, the power plant, the name for it is because the fact that we are getting plants that produce power in a structure that is meant to produce power. A power plant. It's not common that you get that. You get a double thing like that. But yeah, we've got our trusty chainsaw. We just need to get a little bit more solid fuel for it. But I will be back once we've gone on a harvesting spree. All right, we are back. And we've got tons of goodies. So time to feed the machine. Remember which was which? You can use signs, actually, if you've unlocked that in the Awesome Shop, and actually research that in the MAM, you can get signs. But again, just remember which is which. This one was wood, so we put our wood in here. Middle one is leaves, and lastly, mycelia. One last thing, one last connection I forgot to make. Remember this little outside connector and that outside connector? Yeah, connect the 2 of them. Turns out the one biomass burner that I pre-filled with fuel was the one that I forgot to hook up. So once it is hooked up, and you only need the one to start off with, now all the machines are machining. We've got the wood going into here. Wood is going in and making tons of biomass. We got leaves in here. It takes a lot of leaves to make that, 120, that's why we need the tier 2 belt going into the leaves, that's making bio, and then mycelium is making a ton of it, just a little bit more slowly. All of this biomass is getting pumped into this one right here. And this going full tilt, this is why we need the tier 2 belts going at 120, will keep up and produce 60 per minute. Now, 60 per minute split between all of these is going to take a good long while to permutate itself through the system. But a good chunk of it is going to be going up here and going up the lifts to the upper floor, where it will slowly but surely disperse itself. So that, my friends, is the power plant. Like I said, this will be more than enough power for the early game until you get research and production up to where you can get coal. Obviously, coal will outclass this and also not require you to have to feed it, but this does not need a lot of heavy maintenance here. So if you guys like this episode and you want to see more like it, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Your feedback's always welcome. So until next time, this has been Pinstar signing out. See ya!